Hi, I'm Jonathan Goldhill, and I'm a family business coach and the author of a book called Disruptive Successor, a guide to driving growth in your family business. And in my book, I talk specifically to the next generation leaders of family businesses whom I believe are disruptors. If you are wanting to take your business and 10x it, or 2 to 10x your business over the next 2 to 10 years, then you are a disruptive successor. And if you are going to disrupt the status quo and the way the founders did it, then you'll want to follow my 7 P's framework. In my last video, I talked about the P of purpose and finding your purpose and redefining your purpose. But in this video, I want to talk about planning for your 10x. If you're going to plan for a 10x growth, and I don't care if it's 2, 5, or 10x, but it's something big, then you're going to have to get everyone to follow you, of course. And in order to get followers to follow the new leader, they're going to have to buy into your purpose. And that's for the discussion of the last video. If you haven't watched it, go back and watch that. In this video, I want to talk about what it takes to really 10x your business. And I want to reference some of the characteristics that Jim Collins talked about in his book, Great by Choice. But first, I want to share with you a few client stories and personal stories where I saw and was part of a 10x experience. And so my first 10x experience was working with a company from 1989 to 1999. It was an economic development company. It was a fledgling nonprofit organization. I had just gotten out of business school and was really interested in consulting and doing some training and maybe getting involved with financing with these small businesses. And we were a staff of, I think it was like 3, 5, 7 people maybe. And then we lost some of our funding and we went right into the economic recession. And there were 3 of us left. We borrowed $10,000 from the Chamber of Commerce downstairs, and we were in survival mode, and we were fanatical about doing stuff, and we were taking advantage of opportunities as they were coming our way, contracts that we could bid on with the city of Los Angeles and the state of California. And eventually, over a 10-year period, we took that business from like 100,000, maybe got up to 300,000, all the way up to 3.5, close to $4 million in revenue. And we took it from a $10,000 loan that we borrowed from the chamber into a company that had over $7 million in assets. And it took a certain level of skills. It was creativity in the way we went out after the contracts that we went after. It was fanatical execution and delivery of those contract deliverables. It was also about having some level of productive paranoia about what could go wrong and planning for the worst and having an action plan. And those characteristics, that productive paranoia, creativity, and fanatical discipline, that's what Jim Collins talks about in his book, Great by Choice. Let me give you a few other examples. So I worked with a mountain bike manufacturing company called Niner Bikes. And in 2005 or thereabouts, was just getting started and was probably at about $500,000 in revenue. And the founder was fanatical about coming up with marketing ideas and designs and product innovations. And he kept driving with that fanaticism around that marketing. And he was a market leader at the time. No one was coming out with 29-inch wheels on mountain bikes. And eventually it caught on, and the big companies started to catch up and do the same thing. And in that time, Chris grew the business from $500,000 to about $15 million and made it onto the Inc. 5,000 fastest growing companies list. Now, another company that I worked with, Anchor Loans, was the nation's largest, or is the nation's largest, fix-it and flip-it lender. And when I was working with them, they were 20 to 30 people, and it was a pretty nice shop. It was seemingly very profitable. But today, 10 years later, on LinkedIn, they report 142 employees. So I know that they have grown fantastically, and it came through that same fanatical discipline. More recently, also, I was working with a landscape company up in Santa Cruz that was doing about $1 million, maybe $1.5 million in revenue, and today they're at a $12 million run rate, and it came from that same fanatical discipline of execution. So that's a really healthy thing to follow. Those three leadership traits: fanatical execution and discipline, being highly creative around your products and services and delivery of them, and some productive paranoia about what could go wrong, and preparing and being ready to get into action. So if you are that type of leader that Jim Collins talks about, then he calls you a level 5 leader. And that's a leader that people want to follow because it's someone who's humble, hungry, and smart. And I'm stealing a phrase from Pat Lencioni's book, Ideal Team Player, when I say that. But so people want to follow leaders with visions. And a vision is nothing without a plan. So if you're going to plan for your 10X, then you need to think in terms of where do you need to be in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. And you need to see it, and you need to believe it, and you need to sell it. And you need to sell it in such a way that is totally believable to the people on your team. So that means that you need to really break it down into a very concrete, strategic business plan. You need to articulate who your ideal customer is, and you need to be able to articulate what are your promises around your brand, what makes you unique, what differentiates you in the marketplace. That's going to give you an edge in both your marketing and in your sales conversion. You need to be very clear about what your product is and how you deliver that product or that service. So it's got to get way beyond just financial numbers and outcomes. Those are just results. It's got to tell a story, and it's got to drive people towards an outcome. Now, one of the things I always recommend to people when they get started is they do some kind of a SWOT analysis, and that they repeat this on an annual basis. And this is your standard strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis, but also looking at what are the trends in the marketplace. What are things that you could take advantage of, opportunities that you are uniquely talented and have the capability to exploit, and what are weaknesses that you need to shore up? What are threats that you need to protect against? So doing this kind of a regular analysis is very helpful, along with doing some kind of an analysis of your position in the marketplace. How competitive is this industry? How much of a threat is there from substitute products or services or companies? The vendors that you buy your suppliers or vendors that you buy products to deliver what you deliver, do they have an upper hand in the negotiating, or do you? And what about the customers in the marketplace? Is what you offer something unique where you can command a price? So really kind of doing some kind of industry attractiveness analysis. And if you want to dive deep into that, you can study Michael Porter's 5 Forces analysis. He developed this at Harvard Business School. I've used this with clients. It's very effective. Bottom line, if you want to plan for a 10X, first you have to see it. You have to believe it. You have to feel it. You have to then sell it. And it has to be sold in a way that is believable, that people think it could be achieved. And then you need to break it down, chunk it down into bite-sized chunks, 90-day deliverables, 6 months, 1 year, so that it can be done.